Stop. Don't do it. Don't take your fingers away from the keyboard. No. Don't do it. I know you've just clicked a video from a guy comparing an M4 to an M2 and you're outraged. Oh, you're mad. Oh, you're so triggered. You're like, actually, I know all about this. You can't compare an M4 to an M2. They're very different cars. I read a lot of Top Gear and I read Max Power back in the late 90s because I'm really special. And I watched Chris Harris as well on Top Gear. And I know you can't. They're very different cars for very different market, different price. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. What's that? Pets looking at me like, who the fuck are you arguing with? Myself, all right. Right. I've been inundated with one comment from a guy that said, can you compare the M4 and the M2 that you used to have? And I just thought, well, not really. They are very, like joke aside, they are very different cars. But then I thought, well, actually, if you had 50, and if I had 50 grand right now, and I was looking to buy, budget at 50 grand, I was looking to buy an M car, you can get a used it, right? I'll show you, right? Look, this is the thought process that I'd go through. So this is the UK BMW dealer network, right, of used cars. You can get the earliest M2 that sort of arrived from Mexico, rolled off the production line, landed in the UK, July 2023, for about 48 to 50, right? For the pre-LCI M2. But for about 8 grand less, you can get between 35 to 40 grand, you can get an actual M4. In fact, you can get it, what's that, San Marino Blue, I think. F83 competition package coupe, only 7,000. That will be mint. That will be so mint. For only about 7 grand less. M4 for 7 grand less than an M2. Pretty much as good as brand new. So that's my train of thought. But then, of course, from there, I'd be like, well, how much can I get an M5 for then? Well, how much do they use M8 guns for? Right? But that's where your brain sort of goes to. So for my history, just so you know where I'm coming from, because, well, I watched Top Gear, so I know what. Shut the fuck up. So I had right now I've got an M2, right? So I picked this up 2 weeks ago. I've had this, knocking on 2 weeks. It's the LCI 2025 M2 in Grigio Telesto individual, carbon roof, gloss black wheels, and I love it. It's an amazing car. But in 2018, I picked up this. This is a 2018 F83 competition pack convertible, obviously F83. Sapphire black, bicolor 666M wheels, Silverstone merino interior. I don't think it's extended leather, but it's the full Silverstone merino. And it was this still to this day is the best car I've ever had. I adored this car, and I had this for the full 4 years, from 2018 through to 2022, where I sold it for like a 10 grand profit because COVID happened and the prices went absolutely crackers. So So I'm more than equipped to pass. I mean, look at that. It was 55 grand. And this is where you start getting into, actually, the prices are actually comparable. Because this had 100 miles on when I picked it up. So it was brand new, but I was the second keeper because it was a pre-registered one from the garage. The dealership was the first owner. It wasn't a demo car or anything, but 55 grand for as good as brand new. It was only 5 months old. 100 miles, M4 convertible, 55 grand. Now, brand new M2, 65 minimum. The one I've just bought was 71 with the options on. So this one here that I got, I did go to the configurator at some point and I spec'd it up, and it was 73 with all the options on. The options being like the leather, right, the air collars, right, the seats, the bits and pieces, right. They upgraded this, upgraded that, so it came in at about 73, 2 grand more than that, and that would have been brand new, right? That's like RRP on the road price. It's 2 grand more than the M2. That's how mental prices have gone these days. That very car there, if you were to go to the configurator now today for the G series and put the same black, right, bicolor wheels, whatever, Silverstone merino, all the optional extras that there was barely nothing that this didn't have. You'd be knocking on 100 grand, easy, probably tipping 100 grand. The prices have gone insane. So anyway, I just thought, well, I've owned both of them, and if you're in the market with that much money, what would you recommend? Like, what would I recommend you go for? But it's right. Like, I mean, as much as I joke about it, it's not actually that comparable, to be honest. Like, because there's a lot of mitigating factors here. When I owned this car, back in 2018. This was the latest generation, right? We didn't have the G series then, so this was like current generation, and there was a big element of prestige that came with that. Now obviously people driving Aston Martins and Bentleys and Ferraris and Porsches, they'd be looking at me and going, oh, you think you're special, that's cute. But people knew you were in the M4 and it was new, right? You hadn't paid 24 grand for a used one. You'd spent real money on the real new thing, right? So there was an element of sort of feel good factor there. That's gone now. Okay, so you go for an F series, then most people know you're in a used car and it's not as expensive as the big one. Some people care about that, and most of us do, right? You can pretend to not care about it, but a lot of us buy cars like this because we know it projects an image of success. And that people put a lot of value on that. That's the hope. I mean, that's consumerism. That's what it's all about, right? Or else we'd all be driving around in Fiat 500s. Actually, Fiat, shut up. But yeah, like looking at this now. So this is the interior. Obviously, this hasn't aged well in my perspective. Like even when I owned this dashboard, right? This style of dashboard came in around 2011 with the 3 Series, the F Generation 3 Series. I had a 320 diesel from 2011 through to 2014, and then I had a white 430 diesel from 2014 through to 2017 or 2018 when I bought this. I was staring at the same dashboard for nearly 10 years. So by the time I had this, towards the end of the 4 years, I was like really, really sick of looking at this dashboard. It's not a bad dashboard, but you do get fatigued with looking at the exact same, the same vents, the same dials, the same iDrive system, the same center console, everything was the same. It made up for it in a lot of other areas. The seats are spectacular. This merino leather was amazing. You know, it's got the air scarf in that blows hot air into your neck when you're driving with the roof down, and you know the carbon parts and stuff. It made up for it in some areas, but I was sick of looking at this dashboard. So even there's more years have gone by now. Looking back at this, I'd be like, But if you've never had that dashboard, and it's not the worst one to have, but it is aged now compared to the M2, which has a much more refined dashboard. It's got the wide iDrive screening, completely redefined everything. Steering wheel is different a lot, and it's definitely modernized. The M2 interior does look better than this. It looks better than this. It's not built better than this, but it looks better than this. The steering wheel in the M4 is very thin, and it looks really big. I don't think it is big. It's just because it's thin. It looks like you're holding a bus steering wheel, but it wasn't that bad. I think I've got a video of my friend driving a little bit faster than he should in my car. So like when he's holding it, it doesn't look that big. So a quick look at this footage I was passed on from my friend. To 60 on a country road very safely. So yeah, it doesn't feel or look that big when you sat in front of it, but you've got the analog dials there. They're very much dated at this point. Go back to the M2s. Let's take a look at the interior of these. If you haven't, I'm assuming most people have seen the interior of the M2s by this point, but it's very different. So the steering wheels, this is the pre-LCI steering wheel. It's not too far off. These elements are thicker, whereas in the M4, it's not the M4, it's this. These spokes here are a lot thinner. You can see them there. They're sort of. This is basically there's no perspective there from how big gap my fingers are holding up. But yeah, so it's a different wheel, but it sort of has the same sort of design to it. But yeah, the wide iDrive screen, the center console area, it's all different. So it's a very different interior. It looks better. It looks more modern. However, the M4 interior was much better built. It really was. It was so premium. It was more spacious, which it's going to be because it's the M4. It's obviously going to be a more spacious interior, but you felt that when you sat in it, you felt like you had more, space to just sort of relax in, whereas the M2 does feel a bit like it probably doesn't come across on camera because I've got a very big head, but I'm like quite wide built, and in the M2 you feel that, right? You do feel like you're sort of, I wouldn't, it would be an exaggeration to say claustrophobic, but you do feel a bit quite pinched. It's one of my size anyway, but the M4 you really didn't. You've still got the glower badges on the seats. You've got this wonderful merino leather, which BMW fuck off for not putting that in the M2. The M2 leather feels like a gaming chair. It feels like PU leather. It isn't, but it feels like it. But this whole interior was just lovely place to be. You've got leather door cards, which looks dated now compared to what you see in the current generation of cars, but at the time this felt and looked so nice. And it's not fair to say it was better equipped. The G series came out and you got more technology as standard. This it didn't have active. It had cruise control, obviously. It had a heated steering wheel, heated seats. It had more USB ports, so you had a couple in the center console in the armrest area. I think there was one underneath this storage flap here, and I think there was one either in the glove box or in the footwell. But I had my dash camera here. You can just see it hanging there, and the cable went down. I think it just ended around here. But in the M2, I've got to route the dash cam cable all the way down here through the center console into the back seats and then up back into the USB port in here, because you're very limited on bits and pieces, you know. But the iDrive entertainment in the old M4, again, another consideration to have is if you do value that sort of interior conveniences and, you know, the luxury of just having things to play with and like feeling like you're in this sort of advanced driving system, you're not going to get that in here. This has not aged well. I think this was iDrive 6 maybe, and as I was owning this, you know, as soon as 3 years ticked over, BMW started to shut down a lot of the remote services. Spotify support ended on this system whilst I was owning it. I don't know whether it's been reactivated or not, but at some point, boom, Spotify support gone. Couldn't use it anymore. The Harman Kardon that came in the F generation, so I've got it in here. It was unbelievable. It was like being in a concert, man. It was just so loud, so clear. The audio just filled the car with, like, you could hear every bit of treble. The mids were just powerful. The bass was thumping. The amp and the sub was under the seats. The amp was in the boot, which ultimately then flooded with water and blew the amp towards the end of my ownership. If you've bought this car from the garage that I sold it to, and the amp was broken, that was me. Well, it wasn't me. I got it detailed in the jet wash too close to the gap, and the water went in and it blew the amp. So it wasn't technically me, but sorry. But the sound in this was so much better. Now, the M2 does come with Harman Kardon, but it's nowhere near as good as what it was in the M4. I don't know why or how, but the car does not get filled with sound. It's very flat. It doesn't get very loud. The more volume you put into it, the further away the music seems to feel. It's like there's a cut-off point with the highs, and the mids just feel flat. And it's got good bass on it, but it's just nowhere near the same sort of system, which is a shame because I was really looking forward to getting that again. So, you know, what you've also got to consider as well is that the M4, the F generation of M4, is now, I think the latest one you can get is 2020. So they're all out of warranty. Every single one of them is out of warranty now. And that was another reason why I got rid of it. I personally didn't feel comfortable driving a car like this, knowing what could happen to it whilst it was out of warranty. You know, the repair bills could end up getting big. But one of the reasons why I've stuck with BMW for as long as I have, I fell off the wagon. I had an Audi Q7 for 2 years in between this and the M2. I'm lucky to be alive. I count my blessings every day that I'm still on this planet after having owned a Q7. If you're thinking, what the hell are you talking about? Ask me, I'll make a video about it. But it's a story. But yeah, I have never had a single problem, a mechanical issue really, with any BMW I've had dating back 12, 14 years now nearly. The biggest issue I had with this was just a rattly roof. It was in the dealership for 6 weeks to try and fix the rattle, and they got most of it. They just replaced all of the internal lining in the boot, in the roof, and that was pretty much it. My 3 Series, my 4 Series, not a single issue, and I piled the miles on those. This one, I only had it for 4 years, but I only put 11,000 miles on it, which is a bit of a regret. I would have, you know, in hindsight, it would have been nice to have driven this and enjoyed it a lot more than I did. But ultimately, if you were to put a gun to my head and say, well, right now, I give you 50 grand, what would you buy, this or your M2? I'd be like, this. Every day of the week, this car was so good. I mean, just look at that. That design, in my opinion, just has not aged at all. It's almost a timeless look. It's so good, and that's in part helped because the G series came out and everyone was like, "Oh, it's Viva 2, looks ridiculous," and it devalued like or it's sort of tainted the G series, with what the storm around the front end. But I think we're approaching a period of time now where I think we're going to get a mixed bag of M4s kicking about. You're going to probably find, I would imagine, a lot of them in sort of backstreet garages now, sort of 2014, 2015, 2016 M4s, which have maybe got 70, 80, 90,000 miles on them, which is starting to look a bit beat up, interiors worn, tattered. But if you can find one that looks like that, and there's a lot of them, I say there's a lot, it will diminish, right? Right now, there will never be more than there is right now M4s on the official dealership network on the forecourts, but these will all be in really, really good condition. So there's a mixed bag of convertibles, coupes, compacts, non-compacts. My advice, or my opinion, I guess, is don't go for the non-competition pack. Like, if you take a look at this, for example, I saw loads of these kicking out and about, right? Why does it do this? Every time you click an advert, you've got to refresh it for the goddamn. I saw loads of these kicking about when they first came out, and you had to like really stare at them to see, is that an M4 or is that the 4 Series Coupe? Because it's very boring looking, really boring looking. These wheels are not too different from the regular M Sport wheels, or the M Performance wheels you would get on the regular 4 Series. It's just a 420 diesel, right? Coupe, you'd see wheels not too dissimilar from this. In the styling for the rest of the M4, the arches aren't like bulged out, right? The front bumper's not massively different. It is, but to the average Joe, they're just like, it just looks like a 4. It looks like a BMW. So yeah, I would avoid the first few that rolled out. So it's between 2014 to 2016. After 2016, pretty much, there are some exceptions, but pretty much every M4 that came out was the competition pack. And the biggest differentiator was obviously some of the colours and the wheels. You've got the 666M wheels on them. That is just, in my opinion, is one of the best M wheels I've ever seen. I love them. I mean, I work with computer-aided design. I'm not a designer, but I modeled these up. I love them so much. I just modeled up like a one-to-one detailed replica of the 66M wheel because I just couldn't get enough of looking at it. It's such a good-looking wheel. And I don't know, the side profile of the convertible, in my opinion, I just prefer that to the coupe. And you've also got that added benefit of like country roads, roof down, put the air scarf on, get the wind deflector up. You could do like this, you could do the speed limit, and you wouldn't feel it. You could light a lighter. You could light a match in the front of the car at 70 miles an hour with that deflector up. It was so chill, man. I loved it. So I think that's Sakura orange. Is it Sakura? Yeah, Sakura orange. And that was one of my favourite colours as well. I mean, when the sun hit that, it had this sort of yellow-orange sort of flake that just jumped out. It was a beautiful colour. I would have gone for the dark wheels. I'm just a sucker for dark wheels, but I can't get enough of this. I love it. But yeah, I think you can see the Silverstone leather starting to wear down a little bit. And how many miles has this one gotten at 34,000? So that's been well worn. But you're now at a point where you're going to have to expect that, You can find one that's got a few left. Oh my God, that's so good. What's that? That will be Tanzanite. I need to get out more. That's Tanzanite. What am I doing with my life? That's a beautiful car as well, though. Like I'm not a fan of Portimao blue, which I've learned Portimao's the racetrack in Portugal, and so there's a lot of colours named after racetracks at BMW. Yas Marina blue. There's Portimao. There's Imola red. There's Silverstone. There's Zandvoort. It goes on, there's loads. But that is so good. With the Silverstone leather, that blue, chef's kiss, that is beautiful. I would imagine the residual on this is going to be ridiculous, like 30 grand. What age is this? 2017. Residual of 14 grand, maybe? Final payment. It's not. That's higher purchase. Oh, that's too old to go on. That's interesting. You can't do that on... Yeah, it's got to be higher purchase. But yeah, some of the PCP deals, I would imagine the residuals are being set at about 14, which is crazy. If you picked up, right, let's take another look. I don't know, this is barely content, but so there's a 2019. That's not a convertible. That's not a competition pack even. 2018. Yeah, this should be offered on PCP. So the car, oh my God. I do have to refresh. So 30 grand car. 41 payments. That's really good. 481 quid a month for that. So what is it? 47,000 miles. So June 2018. I reckon the residual on this will be about 12.5 to 13. Optional finance at 12. Okay. If you bought this car, right? So final payment 12 grand. If you bought that car from BMW, you pay them 30 grand. Keep it for 4 years. You put maybe 10,000 miles a year on it. So you give it back with about 77 miles on it. That car will still be worth easy 20 grand. Easy 20 to 23 grand, I would say. If you even if you didn't put 10,000 miles a year on it, maybe you handed it back with 65, 70,000 miles on it, you'd score 8 grand easy on that car, because the residual payments are just an absolute scam. They're taking the same car over and over again and just like putting a ridiculously low residual on it so they can get a huge chunk of finance. Then you trade the car in, and then you just end up, they just resell it and put another low residual on it, and they're just fucking just making money off the cars over and over and over again. So yeah, like that's good. That, like, but the thing is, with 47,000 miles, I would imagine the interior on this is starting to look a bit tired. Alcantara steering wheel, you can see that's starting to get a bit bald, a bit. You can see the fruits of somebody else's oily hands all over that. And I was talking about that in one of the old videos. You know, it's not too bad actually, but you can see like there's the shiny bit. That's from like the corner of somebody's hand gripping the wheel, so it's starting to get a bit shiny there. Down here, yeah, I was talking about that with the M2 Alcantara wheel, but that's good. I love these F-Series had the steering wheel with like the 4 LED lights, the gear shift lights on the steering wheel, which was an expensive add-on that you could put on. It was about $1,500 to buy this separate wheel, but that looked really good. I wish you could put that on the M2. I wonder if you can. That was nice. But yeah, so look, I think that'll do. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. You know, overall, if I was to choose, and if I could get my old M4 back, knowing it had low miles, sapphire black, Silverstone leather, in the condition that it was, of which I could probably find a couple on here. It would have to be a competition pack. 34 grand, man. Jesus Christ. Do you know what it is, man? The residual value for my M4 I bought it in 2018, March 2018. 4 years on would have been March 2022. BMW estimated my car would be worth 28 grand in March 2022. It's now December 2024. We're nearly 3 years on from that, and they're selling them for between 35 to 40 grand. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but I mean, that's nice. That's got the red leather in. Can't remember what they call the red leather. I have to remind myself. Sakia, it's the Sakia orange. Yeah, it looks. I mean, that's not the same color as the actual Sakia orange car itself, but I'm not a fan of that. It's too like cartoonish red, like balloon. It looks like a red balloon. I know what I mean, but it does not. It's not translating. But yeah, it's too bright. It's too saturated is the word I'm looking for. I think. Not a fan of the red leather. But yeah, if I could find one in here that was really good, I'd probably have it over the M2, if I'm honest. The M2 is a beautiful car. It drives really well, but it's new. It's going to. In terms of theatre and presence, the M2 feels more direct. It feels more nimble, which it's going to do because it's a smaller car. It's got a bit more power. I think these have 444 brake horsepower with the competition pack. So it's got about 35-ish brake horsepower more, the M2. But these are bigger cars when you're driving them. I'm not going to make references to weight because it's just a moronic argument. Like anybody who goes, oh, that car weighs more, shut the fuck up. You cannot, when you're driving one of these cars, you've no idea what the weight of it is. There's a lot of clever people in Germany have designed these so that it mitigates all of the weight. You don't have to pop a can of spinach, right? Get your pipe and right, fucking bulging your biceps out just to turn the fucking steering wheel because the car's a bit heavy. You hear that with the new M5? Oh, it's really heavy. And what? What you think you're gonna have to like wind up your? Let's get in and turn the steering wheel before you go. It. The entire system has been designed around the weight of the car, so you don't feel it. Right? There's a lot of electronics and mechanisms and control units and logic boards and all kinds of shit to stop the car feel. But you do feel the size of it, right? The M4 felt bigger, so as you turn it around corners, right? You can feel like, I don't know, there was just something, well, that's the weight. it just, you know, it's just the bigger car, the size of it made a difference. But of course I had the convertible, which was heavier, right, with the reinforcement that goes into it. But yeah, the M2 is going to always feel more nimble and quick. But the M4 had more volume to it. The exhausts backfired and popped and barbled a lot more than the M2 does. Like, for example, here's a video of the... gear in the F20 in the F83 F82 you get that, like, it's sort of like it's like a machine gun sort of sound when you change gears. You don't really get that in the M2, not that I've heard anyway. I think I use launch control here, I think. Now, listening to that back, that's the audio getting picked up from a GoPro, which it sounds very like wah, wah, wah. It didn't sound like that, right? It's a GoPro mic. It's not the best at all, obviously. But there was more presence. There was more volume. You know, coming in and out of my street, there was you were noticed a lot more with the M4. Hated a lot more with the M4. The M2 is still loud. The engine noise somehow feels louder with the M2 than the M4 did. But inside the car, the exhaust backfires were a lot more noisy and a lot more prominent. I've just been out to a spa day yesterday with a wife in the M2, went up the A69 in Newcastle towards Hexham, and the road noise on the M2 was unbearable. There's a section of the A69 which has got a certain kind of tarmac, and we've all been there, right? If you go up and down the A1, there's like certain sections of the A1 where the road noise just switches and it just goes like deafening. In the M2, it was like intolerable. It was, if I was doing long distance drives, like there is no way I'd be using the M2. Like it's, like, in fact, like my ears were almost hurting. The noise was so loud. You didn't really get that so much in the M4. I think acoustically it was a lot more treated than the M2 was, or is. You get a really small petrol tank in the M2, so long distance drives again are going to be quite troublesome because it's not very fuel efficient. The M2 feels like it uses a lot more fuel than this M4, but it's hard to tell at this point because it does have a smaller tank. I haven't really driven it enough to see what the averages are, but I felt like I was getting around 25 to 30 miles per gallon in the M4, whereas the M2 feels like I'm getting a bit less than that. But I think it's the same engine. Is it the S58 engine? Is it S55? I can't remember. I haven't gone that far into it yet, to the engine codes and stuff. But I'm pretty sure it's the same engine. Maybe tuned differently. But yeah, so that'll do. That's just like half an hour of content if you're looking for something to watch, and watch somebody like shout at themselves. But yeah, like, I mean, this is still to this day the best car I've ever had, and Sapphire Black is one of the best paints I've ever had. I mean, just look at that finish on its day when you've polished up and detailed Sapphire Black. In my opinion, there's nothing better. It's stunning. I mean, you could actually see your reflection in that, like, crystal clear. It was so good. And but the thing is, though, you spend all day polishing it instead of driving it, and then a day later, you know, there's a building site up the road and it gets covered in sand and dust and stuff, and it shows up really quickly. And right, it's a full-time job keeping on top of that kind of paint. But in my opinion, that's my favorite, best car I've ever had by a mile. So, yeah, like, I don't know if that's going to be any help to anyone. If you're just 30 minutes wasting your time watching somebody as I rant on, I don't know. But yeah, very different cars. The prices are starting to converge a little bit as the used car market sort of levels out on both sides. But for a driving experience, you know, if you're looking for a car that you're going to take out to country roads on a regular basis and sort of blast around B roads and stuff, the M2 is going to be the car for you. It's a better, more nimble, more connected driving experience. If you're looking for a cruiser where you just want to like show off and just like take the family out or something and drive up and down just with the roof down on the summer days and stuff like that, M4 convertible all day long, every day of the week. The M4 Coupe, that would be a tricky one for me. Like, I think I'd struggle to go for an M4 Coupe over an M2, the F series anyway. You know, it's as much as in its day it was the M4. We're now a few years on, like I said before, and it doesn't have the same prestige. I think I would probably have the M2 over the M4 coupe, but a really good M4 convertible. I'm a sucker for that. Again, not everyone is. Not everyone likes convertible. Oh, they're a bit for fairies. They're for fairies. Oh, roof down. Oh, where's your lipstick? That kind of stuff. Like, shut up, man. Shut up. But there you go. There's half an hour of me ranting on. And thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, let us know down below. There was no structure to this. I didn't have any bullet points or anything. I just thought I'll just bring up some pictures and shit and just have a good nit-nat. And and talk to myself. Thanks for watching. I'll see you whatever the next one is. Cheery, bye.